I'm Dave, the Amateur Magus. On this channel, I talk all about the mechanics behind ceremonial magic, occultism, esotericism, and the mechanics behind everything you can find in a dusty old grimoire. On this episode, we are going to be talking about the moon, specifically the moon in astrology. If you enjoy my content, please feel free to subscribe and share this video out to people you think might enjoy it as well. And if you really enjoy my content, consider giving me a couple bucks at the Patreon link down in the description below. And if you are watching this on Patreon, I thank you for your continued support. Back to the video. So, the moon. We talked about Venus, we talked about Mars, we talked about Saturn. We are talking about the luminary now, specifically the lesser luminary. There are three pairs in Western astrology and by extension planetary magic. These are the malefics. We have talked about both the malefics, Saturn and Mars, the greater and lesser malefic, respectively. We have talked about the benefics, which is Jupiter, which we have not yet talked about, but we will. And Venus, which we did a video on recently, is the lesser benefic. That being said, of these three pairs, the final pair is the luminaries. These are named the luminaries because these are the two planets that give off light. That being said, the greater luminary in this case would be the solar powers, and the lesser luminary will be the lunar powers because it's really not giving off light, it is reflecting the light of the sun. That being said, it is important to be on good terms with the lunar powers because the lunar powers filter all of the light and all of the energies from the other planets through the lunar sphere. And if we imagine all of the other planets trying to beam their energy at the Earth, they would all need to go through the lunar orbit, or the lunar sphere, in this case, in order to reach us, which is why, among many reasons, the lunar powers are the gateway to the higher planetary realms. The moon is also said to be the ruler of dreams because they are the luminary of the night. The sun is the luminary of the day. When the sun is out, it is daytime, and when the moon is out, it is supposed to be nighttime. That being said, we know there's a little bit of overlap, but don't worry about that. We're going to pretend that it's the one who rules the night because when the sun is away, the moon gets to rule, because that's just how the luminaries function. Now, because of the uniqueness of the luminaries don't actually have two signs of their own. In fact, there's not actually enough signs for that. There's two signs short. That being said, each of the luminary signs rules one. The sun rules Leo, which we'll get to when we get to it, and the moon rules Cancer. Now, the sign of Cancer is going to be the cardinal water sign. This is the sign of beginning emotions. This is the sign dedicated to causing emotions to start flowing. It's the sign of the home, motherhood, child rearing, among other things. It's the mother sign, basically. It's the mom friend sign. It is the literal mom sign, and all Cancers are naturally very emotional creatures. They never do things directly, which is why the tarot card associated with Cancer is going to be the Chariot, because if you actually study medieval warfare, a chariot does not charge through. That's cavalry. A chariot will go into the back lines and attempt to outflank the enemy by destroying their back line, and it does not charge straight forward, because if it did, the horses would die, and then the chariot cart in behind would just get completely wrecked. So that's another reason why the Chariot card is actually assigned to the sign of Cancer. Like all other planets, though, the moon has a sign where it is exalted and a sign where it is in detriment. In the case of the moon, the signs of detriment is going to be the sign of Scorpio, which is fixed water. We will talk all about that placement. That's an interesting placement. And it is most at home, like it is exalted in the sign of Taurus. Now, the moon in Taurus is going to be the most stable emotionally speaking. It's also, in a very bizarre turn of events, the sign combo that allows for the easiest physical manifestation in the entirety of planetary magic. If the moon is in Taurus, it is much easier to manifest things on the physical than otherwise would be. That being said, when the moon is in Scorpio, that doesn't mean you can't manifest things on the physical. It just means that astral magic and non-physical magic is going to be much more preferred, because that is actually flowing into that current. Pardon the pun as I talk about a water sign and currents. Should also be noted that the only other sign we need to talk about for being in one of the special zodiac signs is going to be the sign of detriment, which is going to be the opposite of Cancer, which would be Capricorn. Now, Capricorn, this is the sign of people who are only emotionally stable when they are working a 9 to 5. And by working a 9 to 5, I mean working a 60-hour job 9 to 5 kind of thing. They need to be under incredible stress and they need to be doing something. These are the kind of people that if you put them in the wilderness for too long, they will naturally just start building a city because they are bored, and they will cut down an entire forest with just a hand axe and manufacture a hand axe making company in the forest so they can continue their path of deforestation, because again, this is the only sign where they need to be doing something. And the reason why is because Capricorn is like the industrious sign. It is the most industrious of all of the zodiac signs. The only ones that might be a close second are maybe Virgos. Might be a close second, but even then, they do not hold a candle. They do not hold a candle to Capricorns. So when the moon, the sign of emotions and what you feel safe and comfortable with, is in the sign of industriousness, restlessness, and needing to achieve things, it can tend towards a sense of, I need to prove that I'm the best to myself, and I will not stop until I do that. I had a live stream the other day where we talked a little bit about moon signs, and you can tell a lot about a person by their moon sign. No moon sign is actually that bad, but different moon signs give different negative qualities to people and different positive qualities to people. Tauruses are most likely going to be the best because it's an exaltation, but that being said, depending on the rest of the chart, moon in Taurus might not actually be that good for somebody if they don't have any fire or something to that effect. You might have a chart where the best thing about their chart is they are a completely cold and emotionless person, and then they have moon in Scorpio, and that can actually just fix their entire chart and make it so everything, like, naturally, you just get so many failures in a chart, it actually all turns into a positive. That is also a possibility. That being said, the lunar cycle is going to be one of those things that people are going to want to track. You're going to want to pay attention to the moon phase when you're doing magic. You're going to want to do your manifestation spells on a waxing moon when the moon is becoming more full and going into a full moon, and you're going to want to do your banishing spells when the moon is going into a waning phase, when the moon is going and turning into the black new moon. This is going to be more solar-like for the manifestation and more Saturnian for the blackness, because Saturn rules the darkness, and that's just kind of how that works. Together, Saturn and Moon make up the father and mother of the planetary powers. As weird as that sounds, the Sun is going to be in the center of this, so you have the father of Saturn, the son of the Sun, and you have the mother of the Moon, which it's kind of like a gigantic planetary family if you think about it like that in a magical sense. That being said, you're going to notice a lot of powers related to motherhood, and specifically old wise women archetypes are typically associated with the moon. Now, don't let the Chaldean order fool you here. Just because the moon is said to be the lowest planet, it's below the Mercury, it's below Sun, it's below Venus, it's below all of them. Just because it's the lowest on the order, remember what I said at the beginning, every planetary power's energy needs to go through the moon's domain in order to manifest in the physical realm. Which means that you do need to be on good terms with the moon, and you should be on good terms with all planetary powers in your own unique way. What your relationship with the planetary powers is going to look like is going to be very different from my relationship with the planetary powers, just like my relationship with the elements is going to be different from yours. Speaking of elements, there's two elements we need to talk about when we talk about the moon. The first one that everyone's going to know is going to be water. The moon is traditionally, and by traditionally I mean in the modern time, viewed as a planetary power associated with the element of water, because we think moon, we think tides, we think water. The moon's metal is silver. You know, it's got the silvery reflection to it, that kind of thing. Which, by the way, the reason, historically speaking, why the stories of vampires said that vampires couldn't see themselves in the mirror is because, historically speaking, mirrors were actually made of silver. They were glass that was coated in silver, I believe, and this purity would not allow them to be shown in a mirror because they would be seeing the undead. So the purity of the mirror would prevent them from being seen. That being said, modern day metals and modern day mirrors are made out of aluminum, and if you look at them, you're going to notice a slightly greenish tinge. So the purity of this kind of mirror is actually gone. So the silver mirrors of old have been replaced with a modern, more mercurial metal, which is aluminum. That being said, it does have some kind of lunar quality to it, because if we go back to Agrippa, I'm going to argue that Agrippa says that metals and various things can gain properties based on what we use them for. This is, I believe, what he attributes the reason for why Cyprus is Saturnian. I believe it's Cyprus. It's one of the Saturnian trees. It was used in funerary rites. That being said, every time I see people using aluminum, it is in mirror boxes. When you're using aluminum, it is aluminum foil and you're using it in a mirror box. So I'm going to say that that gives it some kind of reflective lunar properties to it. And there's one more thing I want to mention about the moon, and that is that you do actually need to pay attention to the void of course. The two things you need to pay attention to about the moon are going to be the moon phase, which is going to be the waxing and waning side of the moon, versus the, waxing is going to be increasing in light, waning is going to be decreasing in light. We talked about that already a little bit. And the void of course, which is going to be the void, of course, is said to be when the moon is least stable. This is going to be something that you're going to want to take care of and you're going to want to pay attention to. And the reason you're going to want to do that is because you're going to want to avoid doing anything permanent or important during a void of course moon. You are, however, going to want to do magic during a non-void of course moon if you want it to stick. It's said that the moon is so unstable, and there have been horror stories, well, I call them horror stories, of people evoking a lunar goddess or a lunar entity, and the entity in question is fine, and then moon goes void of course, and then they go fucking crazy. So that I'm going to extend to magical practices. If that's what the lunar gods are doing, the pagan gods, the divinities associated with the moon, if that's what those entities are doing, then yeah, I'm going to treat that as a bad time to do magic of any kind, because all that magic has to flow through the lunar spheres. Once again. That being said, elemental magic doesn't really have this problem, but it's still in the astral, so it still applies. Don't be bringing that. Like, elemental magic still applies to this. Don't do magic during a void of course thing. I see you. I see you, person who's been paying attention to what I've been saying in technical, the technical way that I'm saying it. That being said, I am Dave, the Amateur Magus. I'm hoping you're having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope your day gets better. And I don't know if you can hear the bird, but the bird has been unsuppressed for the YouTube videos. They will be resuppressed for the live stream. Take it easy.